Joining this webinar today. We are talking about changing the face of patrolling. I'm Hannah Fuller, as it says on the screen. I'm the Head of Strategic Relationships at Unity 5, also known as Zap Park. Today, I'm really grateful to the people who've joined it. It's great to see such numbers on a call, but I'm also joined by three fantastic panelists who I'm sure you're actually here to hear from rather than me. So today I've got Ash, who is the Group Manager for Civil Enforcement and Traffic Regulation at Leicester City Council, Sarah, who is a Director at RCP, which is a family owned and run private parking company that operate across the UK, and I've got Tom, who is the Onboarding and Implementation Specialist lead at Unity 5 as well. They are going to spend some time introducing themselves in just a minute, but first I thought I would just give you a little intro into what we're discussing today. So today we're here to talk about patrolling, and we often talk in this industry about the technology. We talk about EV, we talk about the future of parking, and we talk about these kind of really exciting things that that come up. But actually, one of the things that we don't spend a lot of time about, which is a really fundamental part of our industry, is patrolling. And over the years, there's been so much evolution, there's been so much change, and there's been so much improvement in patrolling. So today we really wanted to take a look at what has happened and what is happening within local authority and within private parking in the world of patrolling. So the format's going to be a little different from a normal webinar today. We're actually going to ask our panelists to speak about 5 questions that we've prepared for them and not do a presentation as such. Those questions have come from several meetings or group discussions or conversations that we've had as a group over time, and actually merit further discussion with this panel. And we would love to hear some audience participation. I think audience input is going to be so vital here. So please share your thoughts, your experiences, your questions through the Q&A function or through the chat if you would rather. Throughout the presentation, if I can, I will absolutely weave it into the conversation that we're having with the panel, but we will have loads of time at the end for some Q&A. So please, if you've got questions, feel free to pop them in whenever, and I'll try and weave them in. If I don't get to them in the presentation, I will absolutely pick them up at the end. So that's enough from me. I'm going to be chairing today.
Hi everyone, my name's Tom Palin. I'm a product delivery specialist and the onboarding and implementation lead at Unity 5. Unity 5, basically, we are a software development company offering market-leading solutions in parking enforcement, permit systems, and environmental enforcement as well. I've been with the company around 4.5 years now. And through that time gained a great depth of knowledge of the product set that we deliver and how that can aid and used in both a private operator and a local authority system. So basically working with both sides of the enforcement. As the lead for the onboarding and implementation team, I oversee the projects, all the new projects that come through. So any new local authority or private operator that comes on, taking any part of our product set and basically assisting the team where need be to make sure that everything's being met in terms of timeframes and delivery of those products, and making sure that they are happy with what they've received and when they're up and running through to go live and that kind of period after go live to make sure everything's working as it should be. On the topic itself, I think it's important to basically kind of highlight what Hannah was saying in terms of using technology but keeping it for people. So basically, how can we aid those CEOs, those civil enforcement officers on the street, and those enforcement officers for the private side, and how can we aid them with technology but without taking away that people aspect? There's many different things that we'll kind of cover in this session in terms of the technology that we can provide and those kind of helpful tools that can really make a difference to them. And that's basically what I'm excited about to talk about today.
Thank you so much, Tom. Sarah, we're going to come to you next, please.
Hi, Hannah. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. So, yeah, my name is Sarah. I'm one of the directors here at RCP Parking. RCP is a family-run car park operator based in Norwich. We have circa 50 plus car parks as far north as Aberdeen, as far south as the Isle of Wight. In terms of my role within the business, I'm in charge of strategy, operations, and new business. This is a very interesting topic today. Patrolling is a very important aspect of our business, and it's something that is sort of close to me. I started in the business even as a patroller. I've sat in the booth myself, so I've seen the business really from the ground up. I've been in parking for 11 plus years now. So yes, it is evolving, it is changing, and thanks so much for allowing me to join this conversation today.
Thank you so much. And I know you have to leave at about 11:15, so thanks so much for joining us for the time that you can today. Ash, if you
could
I'm
Ash Snookes from Leicester City Council.
Intro.
I've been in parking and highways for about 16 years now, so I've dedicated most of my professional career to this. Throughout the time I've worked with a number of local authorities, 14 to be precise, in different roles. One aspect of the career is working in every role within parking. So I've worked for hospitals in private parking, and I've been a civil enforcement officer on street with local authority. So I do feel that I've got a good understanding of patrolling and what it means to be a civil enforcement officer or a parking attendant. Working in the local authority, I've also had the experience of environmental enforcement and public services generally, so not just highways and parking, broader than that. And unfortunately, I've been involved with an array of responsibilities within local authority. Community safety, for example, is also a really important part of civil enforcement officers' roles, and the additional sort of duties that they can become involved in is always important. So, as mentioned, I'm currently group manager for Leicester City Council. I look after civil enforcement and moving traffic regulations. Overseeing direct teams responsible for traffic regulation, parking and moving traffic, as well as transport facilities and enforcement. And thanks for having me on the panel today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no problems at all. You're so welcome. So I guess from that, we've probably got somewhere in the region of, if I loop myself into that, about 35 years of collective parking experience across different sectors. So we've really got a strong group of people to answer your questions today. But first, would everybody on the panel just turn their cameras on for me, and we will start with the first question, which has come up, which is, so patrolling is arguably one of the toughest jobs in our industry, and it's certainly one of the hardest to recruit for at the moment. So why, when we have all sorts of new technology, is it so important that we patrol streets and car parks? And Ash, I wonder if you could start us off with that one. I know that actually you have a lot of experience across both sectors, so I'm really keen to hear how CEOs work in your team, interact with public, why it's important to Leicester, and how you keep those guys.
Absolutely, Hannah. Hopefully you can hear me this time. So in Leicester, our civil enforcement officers play a crucial role in maintaining order and ensuring smooth traffic flow within the city. Interacting with the public is a fundamental aspect of their responsibilities, and it holds a significant importance for several reasons. First and foremost, the interaction between civil enforcement officers and the public promotes a sense of community and cooperation on behalf of the council. And our officers strive to engage with motorists and pedestrians in a respectful and professional manner. Fostering those positive relationships and creating a friendly environment is so important to the council, because they meet more people than perhaps anyone in the local authority, because they're out and about in all weathers, all times of the day, and perhaps the person that people see first when they come into the city. So we find it really important that the officers are approachable and courteous and help establish trust and encourage compliance. And that's not just with parking regulations, but with everything that the city does and expects. Furthermore, effective communication between civil enforcement officers and the public is essential for communicating parking rules and regulations. And they not only enforce parking restrictions, but serve as a valuable resource for the local authority in times of change. For example, when parking enforcement wasn't possible because of certain events that happened, and those officers were redeployed to do different roles and to become in different activities. So it really shows the value of those people. whether it's offering advice regarding parking, explaining the options for payments, or addressing concerns, they enhance public awareness and understanding of parking regulations. Those communications and those points of contact are so important. If we were to enforce with simply just cameras and no people, then that communication would be reduced. Moreover, civil enforcement officers act as ambassadors as well for the council, contributing to the overall image and reputation of the city. So that uniform presence and knowing that there's a person that's an ambassador of the local authority is so important to us. By conducting themselves professionally and demonstrating excellent customer service skills, they positively represent the local authority and promote that welcoming atmosphere as well. And people think, oh gosh, civil enforcement officers, parking attendants, they're there to give me a ticket. But actually, not everybody has that interaction. Of course, there are some negative experiences when people are issued a ticket, and that's never a nice thing to have. We expect our officers to always be the face of the council, essentially. So I think in summary, the interactions between the enforcement officers and the public are vital for several reasons. They foster community engagement, promote compliance with parking regulations, enhance public awareness, and contribute overall to the positive image of the local authority.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about kind of representing a brand, if we can call a local authority a brand, you're absolutely right. Like, they are the people that see, like, the more people, more of the community interact, more of the community. So it's actually really, like, when you say it like that, it's really obvious why these guys are so vital. Sarah, obviously in local authority, that you can't use ANPR to enforce. On private land, you absolutely can. So how do you manage that? Because I know that in your car parks, you have a real mix of patrolled and ANPR. So I'd really like to hear your thoughts on advantages, disadvantages, etc., etc.
Sure. So yeah, ANPR is it's not across our entire estate, but it's on select few car parks. Yeah, look, there are many advantages, obviously, for ANPR. I would say the most obvious, one of the most obvious ones would be around data. So, of course, ANPR provides a wealth of information about the car park, volume, occupancy, vehicle types, such as how many EV users there are. And of course, the benefit is 100% compliance. Of course, the disadvantages with 100% compliance also comes 100% no grey areas. So, of course, that is a challenge that we face, so that we see with ANPR. We have a lot of customers who genuinely have tried to pay or for some reason couldn't get the parking app to work or had trouble with the machine. So, of course, ANPR cannot make a human decision. And oftentimes we find that on sites where we have ANPR or even ones that we don't, the attendants play a crucial role in helping our customers to ensure that their user journey is as smooth as possible. So they do avoid fines. And of course, like a second disadvantage would be that cameras are unable to enforce really poor parking, obstructions and things like that. They just cannot make a decision as of yet on those sort of things. And of course, the other disadvantage is losing, as you said, Hannah, before, the personal touch, which is a really important factor for us in our business. And in fact, even across the sites that we've deployed ANPR, we've made an effort to ensure that we don't de-staff, because we see the value in people. We see the value in people within our business. And of course, these people are representatives of us. So it's important that we have them out there. Equally, of course, their role is changing as technology comes on board. There's a lot more time spent on things like, FM, making sure the car parks are looking good, they're tidy and clean. But yeah, overall, we acknowledge the hard work that they do. We're super appreciative of our staff and the attendants out there.
That basically is an amazing way of supporting exactly what Ash has said. And actually, I think in private parking, customers have a choice where they park. So actually that user experience is super important. Tom, over to you. So you obviously aren't operating a car park either on street or off street or a local authority, but what we do is provide some technology that supports those patrollers. So can you tell us a bit more about that technology that we have that supports people out on the street to ensure that their customer journey for customers and also their experiences for them as staff is as easy as smooth as possible?
Yes, definitely. So a great example of that would be ANPR scanner functionality on a handheld device. So basically what that allows you to do is use a handheld, use the camera on a handheld device to act as an ANPR camera, and then you can use that to then scan a vehicle registration mark, basically to record that information for an observation or if it was for an instant issuance. And this is an example of a tool that is it's still got the physical element of the CEO or the enforcement officer using that and making the decisions on the use of that tool, but it's aiding their patrolling routes. It allows for more efficient and easy access to recording of that information. An example could be walking down a car park and recording multiple cars. If you come to an area where you don't want to record that information, you can turn it off, turn it back on at the next point, and then you're only gathering the information that you want to on your patrol. So that's a really good example of technology aiding a patrol but not taking away from it. And another one would be integrations with ANPR cameras and vehicles that use ANPR technology as well. And a real benefit from that technology is how that information is then used and then recorded to either create tickets or if it's just doing for observation purposes. But that information can be used from the back office to then analyze and then use that to highlight key times, locations, if there's particular areas that need an increase in the patrol routes of on street, etc. So a couple of good examples there.
Yeah, no, really great examples actually. And I think the really nice thing is that it's combining tech and people, which is kind of the point of this call, which is lovely. Sarah, you picked up on something in what you were talking about, which really ties nicely into the next bit, which was that your enforcement officers have other responsibilities, and that's something that we're seeing, I think, across the industry with the expansion of the role of the CEO or parking attendant, and how you are working to actually balance the job of actually the parking attendant, their core responsibilities, with maybe new roles. And I know that for you, the code of practice coming in, when it comes in, will actually have an impact on how you use your enforcement officers. Can you tell us a little bit more about what challenges are and what you're doing to prepare for that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, the new code coming in will impact most of the industry. And yes, definitely going to be a challenge. We obviously have more reporting coming in, more auditing, and the way that we handle complaints procedures. Everything is going to change, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but we all have to adapt. What I will say is that software, and in particular the likes of ZapPark, of course, who we utilize, is going to be key and instrumental into how we adapt and how we are able to deliver on those sort of KPIs. Equally, we've got to make sure that the staff that are issuing from the handheld devices, the PCNs are of the absolute highest quality. I think. And again, ZapPark is helping us tremendously with that. In fact, there are some stats. I'm sorry, I don't have them here, but we have seen that the quality of our PCNs has increased massively since we moved over to ZapPark, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's sort of how we are preparing. The move to ZapPark was a huge part of that. But overall, look, there are going to be challenges, but I think the industry ultimately, all being well, will benefit, because the perception of our industry seems to be quite low, to the public. So anything that can increase that sort of positive viewpoint of what we do and the services that we deliver can only really benefit all of us, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. And thanks for the positive enforcements. We didn't even ask you to do that. So it's always nice to hear you're having a good time. Ash, you obviously working for a local authority, you have several new things coming out, things like environmental enforcement, which can fall into parking, things like moving traffic, which I know that you're just moving into in Leicester at the moment. And I know that from your various roles throughout the industry, you've had quite a lot to do with moving traffic and environmental enforcement and using CEOs to fulfill different roles. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're managing that? And that would be, I think that's a really interesting thing for the local authorities on this call today.
Yes, Anna. So Leicester is a fantastic, bustling city. So we're always continuously striving to develop our processes and harness that technology where we can. We want to deliver for residents an efficient and high quality service, and that's for residents and service users. So people that come to our car parks or come to our streets to park and use those facilities. In Leicester, environmental enforcement is typically conducted separately with our city warden service, and that's because they take responsibility for a wide range of issues from waste management and neighbourhood concerns and matters that arise in the homes and in communities. However, we do have a large team of civil enforcement officers. We're striving towards 70 civil enforcement officers, but as you appreciate, recruitment is always a challenge for local authorities and frontline roles at the moment. Our enforcement officers do issue fixed penalty notices as well as penalty charge notices for littering and other routine environmental offences. So they do get involved in that dual role to a degree in Leicester. It's important to note that our services are delivered in-house as well and by the council. That's the frontline civil enforcement officers work for the local authority. What I would like to do though is highlight an example.
Oh, we may have lost Ash.
Where a small district environmental and you guys think, have you lost me or am I back?
You're back.
I'm back. Yeah, so I do apologise. Don't have issues normally. Today I do. So yes, the example of a smaller district authority which merged services for greater efficiency. So by utilising a single enforcement system for both parking and environmental enforcement, we streamlined operations to demonstrate the importance of the back office system. It was used for both environmental crime and parking enforcement. So that's a handheld out on the street that the civil enforcement officers use to issue PCNs, and the same for littering enforcement, for example, under environmental FPNs. In the same respect, the back office system was used to issue FPNs for things like fly tipping and more serious offences from the back office, so with a letter and an address to someone. I think it's really important to strike a balance with the skill sets of those officers. It's crucial to recognise that the roles demand different interactions and expertise. So if there are any authorities looking to do that, it is very, very possible in terms of the technology and the systems that are available. But it's important to ensure those people are able to manage the two different areas of work that require very different customer interactions as such. Thinking about technology and moving traffic enforcement. So as we move forward with moving traffic enforcement in Leicester, we have merged multiple systems to ensure efficiency and continue to drive those service improvements. We're always looking to embrace technology that's available and consider automation and digital transformation to enhance the service. We don't want to lose the personalised experience for the customers or the service users, and we do always consider equality as well whilst doing that. I think it's really important that we mention that we don't simply offer technology as the only way forward, but it's definitely great for some service users and great for the council to deliver its services with the budgets that it's got available. So in conclusion, I think the interaction between the civil enforcement officers and the public in Leicester is still really important. We embrace that technology and maintaining that strong back office infrastructure is so important to the authority.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you touched on really nicely is that there's no one way. So every local authority and private parking operator will use and deploy their staff differently. And actually, it's about finding people that you can work with and partners that you can work with to ensure that actually you're doing the best for the area or the kind of sector that you're delivering in, which I think is really important. Tom, I'll bring you in there actually, because I think one of the things about where we work is that we offer a service that kind of covers so many different sectors, so many different customer bases, and actually, so the role of that parking attendant or the CEO actually is quite different across a lot of our customers. We've done a lot of work, I know, as a business to ensure that actually the software that we're delivering actually supports CEOs and parking attendants across all of that. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and how we are expanding to enable our customers to expand?
Yeah, so I can kind of dive into a few bits. Some of it links into what Ash was saying just a minute ago as well. So one of the functionalities that we have across Unity 5 is the custom ticket functionality, which basically is the ability to create a ticket type and then customize that so it records all of the information required to proceed with the contravention or the offence. And what that allows us to do is basically have the customization on a fixed penalty notice, for example, to then build that out as per the requirements of the council or the private operator, and then basically take that information and then create the ticket type according to it. And then what we can then do is have that on the handheld device where you can then use your PCN, whether it's a parking charge notice or a penalty charge notice, and your FPN issued from the same device. So I know that Ash mentioned about it, that they're already using that technology, and that's something that we can accommodate as well in terms of that ability to use a single device on the street, a handheld device, and basically accommodate both of those ticket types. Saves the logistics of multiple devices, multiple printers, etc., and kind of gives us that kind of flexibility in terms of what can be delivered. Another kind of thing that we use is basically there's in terms of CCTV integrations. So basically in terms of supporting schools and school keep clear areas, we have the technology available. So we work with third parties where they would then create a evidence pack. So basically they would have their own suite. They would then record that information. It would be processed by the private operator or the council. They would then send that information through to the back office. And basically that would then create a ticket on Zap Park. It would go through its life cycle, and then it would go through as normal. So that's another example of things coming that we can do currently. We've also got a couple of things coming on our new application on the handheld. So a couple of them to talk about. We've got the work order management. So basically what this allows to do is basically allows tasks to be created either from the back office or from the handheld. And what that then allows for is basically, if I give you an example, if a task was created from the back office and sent through to the CEO or the enforcement officer, it could be relating to a site survey or a site suspension. And then basically they can record the information, receiving that task, whether it is images, notes, videos of the task, action it, and then send that information back to the back office. And then an example, if one was created from the handheld device, it could be that they've attended a site and a pay and display machine is out of order. So basically they could then use that, they again, record that information through images, video or notes, send that to the back office. And then basically they could create the relevant task in order to process that with the third party to get that fixed. And then one last thing, just to kind of talk about on this, another thing that's coming is shared observations. So basically this will be the ability to take when a handheld CEO or private operators recorded an observation, that will then be stored in the cloud. And then basically if another CEO on a different handheld device or another enforcement officer records that same observation, they will then be provided with that previous information, so they can take all of that information and make an informed decision on how they want to proceed. So lots of different examples there of kind of aiding the private sector and also local authorities.
Thanks very much. I'm really aware that with we're halfway through. If there are any questions, please post them in the chat, but there were a couple of questions that were sent in, so I'd just like to address those very quickly. So Darren from Bristow and Suta asked, has anyone been a CEO? I haven't. Sarah, you've opened up.
Yeah, I've opened up. Yes, in fact, quite frequently, I mean, I've got a high vis in the back of my car. Quite often I do put it on when necessary, and still do walk around the car parks. So yeah, I do, and I have done that role previously, many moons ago, without such great technology that we have today. It was all sort of manual PCN books, but yes, yeah, I do.
And Ash, I suspect in your extensive parking experience, you have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a local authority CEO and parking attendant quite a few years ago, so no doubt times have changed, but I do think that some of the experiences remain the same.
It brings me on, actually, that one brings me really nicely on to another question and we'll keep this one short if it's all right, and maybe come to just Ash and Sarah on this one. But there's a lot of discussion about frontline staff safety at the moment in the industry and making sure that people are safe. I guess there's a couple of the other questions that came in is like, if you've been a CEO, you've got experience of that. So when you're running a business or you're running a team, you understand that stress. Is there anything that you guys are in particular doing to support the safety of your frontline officers? Ash, go for it.
Yeah, so we're always raising awareness of the safety of officers and making sure that people appreciate these are people. They're not just a job or a parking attendant or a traffic warden, as we hear so often, or a civil enforcement officer. We've got obviously all of the the PPE elements and the cameras and the the safety elements in place. We like to work closely with the police as well to develop relationships to ensure that when we do need to call on them, they're there to support those officers. We always take seriously any abuse in relation to our officers, any assault also, and proceed to take those forward, whether it be with the council, looking at things like the housing of those people, or the support services that the council offers to those people, but also with the police and the courts as well. So we find it's so important, but there is still more to be done in relation to the messaging in the media, and we've seen it even recently with moving traffic enforcement. I think we've noticed headlines where it says unfair PCNs, and there's no evidence of that. It's simply something that's going to be commenced in the next few months, and already we've got that negative impression, and of course it impacts those guys out and about on the street, because whilst they're not involved in the issuing of moving traffic PCNs, they will still receive the the abuse and the conflict perhaps.
Great. And Sarah, actually Dave Coates has just posted in the questions very similar. What do you think can be done to reduce the instances of abuse that CEOs come across? So maybe you can weave that into your answer as well.
Yeah, look, it's a difficult question to answer, but I think if we look at the issue holistically, we as the parking industry have got a responsibility to try and increase the positive vision of what we do and our operations. It's a bit of a chicken and egg for me. Yes, we support our CEOs tremendously, give them the tools, the PPE, very similar things that Ash does. But at the same time, I think we all have to collectively take some responsibility to say that we've got to improve the image of our industry. I mean, we do that ourselves just by our own philosophy and our ethos of how we go about and do our business. We like to give people the benefit of the doubt. We like people to have a good experience on our car parks. Changing the perception is key, because they do get a lot of abuse. I think 9 times out of 10, it seems to me that it's usually around, are you going to issue me a fine? I'm only a minute late, or I think we also have to have a little bit more understanding of the general public, and try and give them the benefit of the doubt. Of course, there's always going to be people who don't don't follow the rules, or who are deliberately going out of their way. But I don't think that is necessarily the case for 99% of the general population. So, we just have to try and, do our business, in a friendly way, and just try and manage that as best as possible.
Yeah, I think that absolutely, it's that positive parking kind of impression, isn't it? And the press is so important. Dave, I hope that answered your question. Dean at Dover had also sent in something similar, which is that technology can take some of the rage away. I guess you guys can appreciate that, but actually, are we losing that face-to-face conversation and that face-to-face interaction? For me, it's very much, I think that technology and people have to work hand in hand, but if anyone would like to pick that one up, please do.
Yeah, I'm happy to just add that, you know, we using MNPR, we have seen a huge reduction in aggressive behavior towards our CEOs. So that has been a game changer for us. You know,
by MNPR, you mean the fact that you can have a patroller and then issue from
yes,
the back office?
Yes, that has been, I mean, the feedback from that has been phenomenal. So what used to be, you know, the printer out and putting the ticket on the window, and then people seeing that yellow sticker on the window has gone to not seeing anything at all, which has really taken the sting out of people coming and finding the attendant saying, you know, why did you do this? Why did you issue that? Why is this or that? You know, so that's been really important for us. Definitely has helped.
Oh, fantastic. That's great to hear, actually. Ash, is there anything that you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I just like to say really that if we remove the negative interactions, that's obviously really positive for staff and for companies and employers, and we want to do that, but we have to remember that there are positive interactions as well, and that there'll be a gap at that point and someone else will need to pick that up. And I'm just wondering who that would be in the community. You know, we're seeing changes in every area of work. Eventually, perhaps there won't be that level of support if we make these significant changes, but I do really appreciate why it's beneficial.
Yeah, and actually there was a lot of talk about frontline safety, but actually about frontline safety of people who are on phones as well, not just face to face, because actually if there is no face-to-face interaction, it's often the people on the phone that get the grief. There's a really nice question come in from, oh crikey, they're coming in thick and fast. Sorry, from Simon, which is, what are your views on CEOs wearing body cameras? Have you experienced any resistance from CEOs in relation to wearing the cameras? Ash, I think your team do wear cameras.
Yes, we do, and I think that they see the value in those cameras. Of course, I think when we first introduced body cameras a good few years back, there was negative resistance because people felt that they were going to be used for alternative means. Now that we know they're there for the safety of colleagues and individuals, I think the benefits are realised across the board. And I think in most industries, people are wearing them now. I think supermarket staff are wearing them. So it's a front, you know, anyone on a front line role, realistically, I think are now in that position wearing them. So it's becoming routine, isn't it? So I don't foresee it being an issue.
Sarah, was that the same experience for you?
Absolutely. We found that our staff have requested them. They want them. And again, it's been our experience that body cams really do reduce the aggravation that, you know, is caused to the CEO. So, you know, when people have come close and they've seen that, you know, one of the guys has got or girls has got a camera on, it can take the sting out of a situation. People think again about what they're going to do. So yeah, beneficial, 100%.
Ian has asked a question, which is, what do the panel feel on the area of ambassadorial roles for the CEOs, such as in Westminster City? Does it help or hinder the day-to-day roles? Anybody want that one? Oh, Ash.
Me, yeah, I think it's me, isn't it? I think it's very beneficial. I appreciate that services have duties to perform, and fundamentally there's priority in relation to what those individuals are there for. So if they're parking enforcement officers, then of course they'll need to do the parking enforcement. I think looking at the example of environmental enforcement, yes, additional duties can distract from the day-to-day, no doubt. We have to strike a balance though, don't we, between the two, and having additional value in those duties. And I guess employers and councils need to appreciate that they're more than just enforcement officers, for example.
Sarah, I'm really aware you need to leave in like 2 minutes, so I would like to ask you this kind of last question, which is, would the panel agree or not that the punishment for someone abusing a CEO for simply doing their job has to be greater? Once the public understand abuse is not tolerated, it will be dealt with swiftly and harshly, and it will reduce. I know you're quite passionate about this because you're really passionate about your staff, so What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. The truth is that we do report, as I'm sure Ash does as well, when our CEOs get abused. How far the police take it is the experience has not been that positive for us, and that can be very demoralizing for staff. If there were better consequences, or more severe consequences, I do think that would deter people 100%. But yeah, that definitely is a challenge, and it is an issue. Yeah, absolutely.
If you need to go, please just go. And thank you so much for your participation. You've been super valuable. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks everyone for having me. Thank you.
Tom, I don't know whether that's something actually that you want to talk about at all, is that, like, we see as a business, we don't see that side of things, but we hear about it from our customers, and we hear the differences some products make to that. I guess it's the same in some ways. It's the same as how much we hand out in fines as well. If the deterrent isn't high enough, are people just going to be non-compliant? And we've certainly seen an increase in non-compliances being paid early, which is often being put down to the fact that the initial payment is less than the parking fee. So what are your thoughts generally on where we're at with actually abuse and compliance within our sector?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if the amount isn't a deterrent, then for some people they're just gonna offend anyway. So it definitely is something. Obviously, it's going to be put up in when the code of practice comes in and updates. So that's obviously a big step towards changes in that. And when we know those exact changes, obviously we can accommodate for what needs to be done. But another example of that is not just from a front line, but from a back office perspective, taking a phone call from an angry motorist who's received their fine and dealing with that situation, and taking that into context, using the Zappark system or whichever system they're using. It's important that they have all the information they need at their fingertips. So basically, if you're dealing with an angry customer and basically you're then searching for information, you're getting either the wrong information, you're taking too long to deal with the situation, that's only going to add to that anger levels. So if you can deal with that swiftly and have all the information at your fingertips, whether that is time and date stamped images, whether that is video information, whether that is appeal information, etc., that's going to be the best experience. So yeah.
And Ash, I guess you have the same experience, that actually knowledge is power, and that the more your staff are informed from both the CEO side and the back office side, actually the like how they can deal with any abuse can be diffused.
Yeah, absolutely, Hannah. I think working with integrity and providing a efficient and quality service really makes a difference. If our officers are peer professional and do their role well, then that will definitely reduce the level of abuse and aggression. I'm mindful of the initial question that should penalties be harsher for abusing officers? I think absolutely they should, but I guess everyone in every industry has the same sort of want and so be it. They should be able to. Everyone is a person and deserves to be treated with respect and without coming to harm whilst they're doing their job. So perhaps that should be extended to all areas of work. And I think local authorities are very keen to push for this because we want to protect people. But of course, in the private parking sector, colleagues are doing a very similar job and should also be protected too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to go to a question and I'll jump back that was sent in previously, which is from Alan at Excel. So at the moment, obviously, local authorities can't use ANPR to enforce. Do local authorities want to use ANPR, and will the law change? Ash, this is you all over. It's probably not something you can answer, but have you got an opinion on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think local authorities do want to use ANPR because the burden of patrolling takes significant resource, and what we want to do is provide the most efficient service for for the public. And what we often find is people ask us the question, why do you not enforce it with a camera? Why can we not pay in the same way? You know, why can we not do the same things? We find it works really well at the hospital or the airport or in the shopping centre. But in your car parks, we don't have this flexibility and these options. And I think that's something that we would want to encourage. If that will change, of course, that's a big question. And I know BPA are working hard to try to deliver that for us.
Fantastic. One for you, Tom, from Mark Newman in the questions is that the new code may see the end of MNPR, sadly. His patrollers have body cams, but is there any plan to be able to integrate body cam footage into Zap Park to link a ticket, because they do find that body cams diffuse some confrontation?
Isn't something that I'd be able to answer at this time. There probably is plans, and there is probably ways that can be linked, and I'm sure there will be in the future. At the moment, I don't know. I know obviously you can upload the images and the videos directly into the back office, so you could do it that way but in terms of a direct link, it would determined by the where that information is coming from and the source of that information and how that's being transferred. We work with many third-party providers in all sorts of integrations, whether it is cashless or ANPR, etc. So there's a wide scope of technology that we already use in terms of that transfer of data, and it would just likely be another third-party transfer of data through to us. So yeah, we're always open up for discussions on those matters.
Is that the kind of thing that would actually support your team as well, being able to link body cam footage into a ticket?
Yeah, I think flexibility to do that's really important. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do that in every case because we use those cameras responsibly and only where necessary. But
oh, we've lost Ash again. Hopefully he'll come back. But Mark, whilst Ash has got lost, let me take that away, because actually it's something that we can take back into the business and find out for you. Oh, you're back, Ash.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know if you heard what I said in relation to, in some cases.
We got kind of halfway through.
Yeah, sorry. In some cases, definitely, yeah, we would want to. And having flexibility to do that is great. Just to support our interactions, and to ensure that we've got a full view of the situation. And it's just really great business sense, isn't it, to ensure that you've got a great system to manage these clips, essentially.
Yeah, it's definitely something, to be honest, that I hadn't thought about. So one to take away from today. We also have a question from Manny, who has put, as the main subject of the webinar is about changing the face of patrolling, do the panel believe that as part of improving the industry's image, we should be campaigning to change the title of civil enforcement officer to a less aggressive title, such as the old-fashioned, but still used by many, parking attendant or parking warden? Now, I think this has been controversial over many years, I think. So Manny, that's a good question. I have a funny story of, I took a client to lunch once, and one of them was a CEO. I also had my chief exec officer with me at the time, who introduced himself as the CEO. And there was the actual parking CEO was absolutely delighted that there was someone who did the same job as him at the dinner, which was really, really funny. So there is definitely some confusion sometimes with CEO. Ash, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, parking attendant, I'm not a big fan of the title from CEO back to parking attendant. I think the title of CEO is more attractive to people looking to come into the role. Having said that, yeah, I'm really open to suggestions of change. What that could be, I don't know. I think we all really enjoyed the civil enforcement officer title when that occurred a good few years back now. And the PA title, perhaps it doesn't seem as significant, and that could put people off coming into that industry as well. Whether we have one title for both areas of work, that is obviously something that perhaps should be considered.
Any thoughts on that, Tom, or is that too far removed from your day-to-day?
For me, it's not something that I deal with on a day-to-day. I normally get told what to call them rather than to choose the names for them.
Yeah, and I think it's quite interesting as a supplier, because we have to set people up as lots of different things. So one name would be lovely, I suspect. We have another question, which is from Mark at Landor. who likes a difficult one for us. What do we think of using robots as CEOs as they do in the US? Ash.
I've not seen those yet, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that later. When you can send the links through. I guess that perhaps it's too far for now. We're struggling with ANPR and the fact that people are not happy with automation in a mild form at the moment. So perhaps that's something for the future. But at the moment, public perception is that wouldn't be a positive change.
Tom, any thoughts?
I think it doesn't really go with the topic of today in terms of well, you could say it's changing the face of it because it's actually changing the face, but other than that, it's getting that combination of using technology but not taking the people aspect out of it completely. So yeah, it's not something that we've got plans for at the moment.
I know we had a very brief, when we saw this question, it kind of, we all went, ooh. But I know Sarah's thoughts actually were very much that people are vital to her business, as technology is, and having them work hand in hand actually for her is her best solution. If you were to take the people element out, you would take out the human element, and that's really important from a brand ambassador perspective as well. So I know that I can kind of relay her thoughts on that one to you, Mark. I think that answers all the questions that had come in, and we've only got 5 minutes left. Is there anybody else who wants to share any thoughts? Please feel free, or any other questions. Otherwise, I will just wrap up with kind of a final question about the future. So I can't see anything else being typed or coming in. So what I'll say is to both of you, Ash and Tom, I guess we've talked a little bit today about the role of the CEO, about additional responsibilities that are coming in, the importance of having that on-street presence and how tech supports it. But how do you see the role of the CEO changing over the coming years with how the parking landscape is changing? Tom, I'll start with you, and then I can end with Ash.
Sure. It's something that we hear from customers across public and private, that basically getting more, Sarah touched on it earlier, the analytics, the data, the information that's being provided to that back office, and using that information for cost saving and retention of staff as well. And I think that data is going to play a bigger part over the next few years in terms of how it adapts for either the local authority or the private operator, and how they use that. And also we've talked a little bit about fixed penalty notice and the environmental responsibilities, and that being when Ashley's the ambassador for the council, and basically thinking of that role, if someone is then using that, and the perception that person has for when they are taking on that role and issuing through that, and that kind of perception of keeping it green and clean, keeping the community a safe place, is highlighting a positive reflection on the CEO as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that actually as an industry we can really do something to support clean and green from within our parking sector. Ash, give us your thoughts.
I think we're already seeing change at the moment. The way people travel and transportation has changed so significantly over the last few years. We don't see people traveling to work necessarily in the traditional way. We don't see people always traveling to work at all. We work in a very agile way in Leicester, and even in our transport teams as well. We have that approach. We want to protect the environment and to reduce obviously the carbon footprint of our travel. And I think that definitely changed is what our civil enforcement officers do, where they go and how they do things. So for example, we have less vehicles parking in city centres, and perhaps more vehicles parking in district areas or outside of the city. And that will continue as we drive behavioural change really, and encourage people to take sustainable transport options instead.
It is. We are becoming more sustainable, which is amazing. There has come a little question from Gary, which is, why can local authorities use ANPR for moving traffic violations, but not for parking violations? Is this for another webinar, perhaps? Well, we've got 2 minutes left. I don't know if Ash has an opinion on this. He may not, in which case you can say no, Ash. Or if anybody on this call has a particular piece of knowledge, please feel free to kind of put something in the chat.
Hannah, I may just say that obviously regulations restrict us. I think some authorities would and probably did enforce their parking restrictions with cameras in a more diverse way previously. Obviously that was restricted, and now authorities only manage certain contraventions with cameras. I think you'd have a different approach in every setting, and that there are benefits, and it's just a really great question. Why is there such a difference, and what is the purpose of that difference?
And maybe this move into moving traffic will actually raise that question again. And any positive, I know a lot of the data that's coming out of moving traffic is actually really positive about the positive impact that warnings can make rather than immediate fines. And actually, could we use ANPR to do something similar to that? Possibly. So that would be a really interesting one. The only other comment is from Manny, which is to say, please send positive stories to your local newspaper and post them on socials about parking. I think there's a lot of discussion around our industry at the moment about how we as individuals who work in this space can be real ambassadors for our industry. I know as part of the various boards that I sit on and conversations that I take part in, where there is such an impact at the moment that individuals can make. As we become a collective, we can actually improve the perception of our industry. So I 100% second you on that, Manny. And from me, I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's joined. There were loads of us in the end, and most people stayed for the whole time, so thank you so much for that. To Ash and to Tom and to Sarah, who unfortunately has left us, for being part of this. Thank you so much for your knowledge, for your insight, and for the time that you've taken to do this. I really appreciate it personally, and I know the team do as well. And with that, I guess we'll roll up and roll out. But thank you so much, and look forward to seeing many of you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Bye.